This is the USS Milius, one of the deadliest naval warships to ever exist. It can launch multiple long-range missiles, surface-to-air missiles, and anti-ballistic missiles all at once, all while being submerged miles underwater. If your country is engaging in submarine warfare, your chances of winning the war would increase drastically if the USS Milius is fighting on your behalf. But why did this massive US Navy war machine recently make international news? Well, the USS Milius was recently spotted deep inside Chinese maritime territory. Why was it there, and what did the Chinese feel about its presence? Could this submarine trigger a full-blown war between China and the US? Let's learn all about this shocking event that has sent geopolitical shockwaves across the world. In March 2023, China's Defense Ministry claimed that it had detected the presence of the US Navy-guided missile destroyer USS Milius deep inside its territorial waters. They claimed that it was the second time in recent years that the USS Milius had been caught snooping around the Paracel Islands in the South China Sea. For the Chinese People's Liberation Army, this was a clear act of aggression. One spokesman of the PLA commented on the incident saying, "The act of the US Navy violated China's and breached international laws." According to them, this incident was ironclad evidence of the US militarizing the South China Sea. In response, the PLA swiftly mobilized its Navy and Air Force. This was a warning shot that the USA heard loud and clear. Within hours of China's initial complaint, the USS Milius departed the area. However, days later, the US Navy denied the whole thing. They claimed that they were asserting the navigational rights and freedoms in the South China Sea and that their actions were 100% consistent with international law. So who was telling the truth in this war of words that easily could have escalated into a full-blown maritime war? It's hard to judge because both the Chinese and American establishments have proven to be unreliable narrators, but it's not a surprise that the Paracel Islands in the South China Sea were at the center of this controversy. Although the Paracel Islands are just one of the many disputed areas in the South China Sea, it's one of the few locations in the area that's rich in natural resources. The islands are surrounded by massive oil and gas reserves, many of which are still unused. They're also highly productive fishing grounds. No wonder this region is claimed by China, Taiwan, and Vietnam. China seized these islands from Vietnam in 1974, and since then they've built multiple military installations on and around these islands. In their eyes, the Paracel Islands belong exclusively to them, and there is no dispute over its ownership. But the presence of the US Navy in this part of the world indicates that this dispute is still well and alive in the minds of Chinese adversaries. China, of course, is aware of this sentiment and has repeatedly stated that it would take all necessary measures to guarantee its territorial security. Let's look at the measures China is taking to deliver on that guarantee. According to the Pentagon's 2022 China Military Power Report, the People's Liberation Army Navy surpassed the US Navy in fleet size way back in 2020. China currently has 340 manned warships, and this figure is expected to grow to 400 by 2025. Meanwhile, the US fleet currently consists of less than 300 manned warships, and there are no plans for rapid expansion. The Pentagon aims to have 350 manned ships, not by 2025, but by 2045. In other words, the US simply cannot compete with China when it comes to fleet size. Why should Americans and the rest of the world be weary of this mismatch? Because China is taking the recent exploits of the USS Milius very seriously. The incident that we spoke of earlier in this video happened sometime in March 2023. Less than a month later, reports from Japan claim that China, for the first time in its history, has pledged to keep at least one nuclear-armed ballistic missile submarine active at sea at all times. The report claims that a Chinese fleet of 6 ballistic missile submarines was spotted patrolling non-stop in the South China Sea. These ballistic missile submarines are said to be Jin-class submarines that are equipped with long-range ballistic missiles. These missiles have an estimated range of over 10,000 kilometers. Theoretically speaking, if these missiles were launched towards DC from a Jin-class submarine in the South China Sea, it would take less than 30 minutes for the missiles to reach their target. What would happen if the scenario played out in real life and a full-blown war kicked off between the Chinese and American navies? In the history of naval warfare, the bigger fleet has almost always had the victory. Take the Napoleonic Wars of the early 19th century as an example. French warships were far superior in terms of ship design and construction. The French Navy also had Napoleon, one of the greatest military generals of all time, leading the ranks. Despite this, the French were unable to cross the English Channel. Their fleet was outnumbered by the large numbers of British Royal Navy ships patrolling the Atlantic Ocean. It wasn't just the English ships that won that war. Operating a large fleet also means that your Navy personnel are better trained. So it's fair to assume that the the larger Chinese Navy would instantly outpower the American Navy in case a naval war breaks out between the two. No, that's because in such a scenario, the US Navy can always count on their allies in the region for backup. The combined fleet of the USA, Canada, Australia, Japan, and South Korea will easily outnumber the Chinese fleet. Also, we must not forget the USS Milius. This Arleigh Burke-class missile destroyer of the US Navy is still active near the South China Sea. If the Chinese Navy does launch an offensive, this warship will immediately spring to action, and if it does, it will cause a lot of damage. The USS Milius was launched back in 2005. It can be used for both air defense and anti-submarine warfare. In 2006, the warship effectively launched a Block 4 Tomahawk cruise missile, becoming the first ever warship to achieve such a feat. This long-range missile has a range of 1,000 plus miles, it has pinpoint accuracy, and can simultaneously carry multiple warheads including cluster bombs and precision-guided munitions. If the USS Milius is ever sprung into action, it will cause immense damage to multiple Chinese military installations in the area. It can even wipe out population centers in China's heartland, but the possibility of this warship ever being used in a war is very low. That's because the US Navy has something much bigger up its sleeve. The US Navy may never be able to match the Chinese Navy missile for missile or ship for ship, but why go toe-to-toe with your adversary when you got a $15 billion hammer? We're talking about the Columbia-class SSBN, a new class of nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines that's currently under construction by the US Navy. 12 of these nuclear submarines are set to be launched into operation by 2031, and they'll most likely tip the power balance in the US Navy's favor. The Columbia-class submarine is 560 feet long and can carry up to 2,810 tons of weight. Most of this weight-bearing capacity will be dedicated to up to 16 Trident II D5 missiles. The Trident II D5 missile has a range of over 9,000 miles, which is enough to reach any target in the world. It can carry up to 12 nuclear warheads and can hit a target the size of a soccer field with near-perfect accuracy. This missile can be launched from a submerged submarine and can be coated with radar-absorbing paint. That means if the Trident II D5 missile is ever launched from a Columbia-class submarine to kickstart a nuclear war, no one would even be able to detect it, let alone intercept it. Before China or any other nation even realize what has happened, the world would be engulfed in nuclear dust. It's no surprise that American naval officials have repeatedly stated since 2020 that the Columbia-class sub is the US Navy's top priority program. This also means that the US will probably not engage in any form of naval warfare before 2031. Once the largest and most powerful submarine the world has ever seen is put to sea, no naval power will even dare to think of going to war with the US Navy, right? No, that's because the US Navy will still have Russia's attack subs to worry about. Ballistic missile submarines like the ones in the Columbia class may pack a powerful punch, but they aren't the undisputed top dogs of the marine world. That title belongs to attack subs, which can track and hunt ballistic missile submarines. Attack subs come equipped with a long list of weapons that are designed for deep-sea combat. These subs also sail faster and can dive deeper than any ballistic missile submarine. Within minutes, they can take out a ballistic missile submarine located hundreds of miles away. The Russian Navy is currently in possession of many such attack subs. The Russian Akula class and the Sierra class attack subs are currently fully operational. Russia is also in the process of building 10 more advanced attack subs called the Yasin class. Shortly, if the Russian Navy detects that the US Navy is planning to attack the Columbia class submarine, it can instantly deploy multiple attack subs to annihilate the giant war machine before it does any damage. Thankfully, all these theories are still mere theories. The fact that China considers the presence of the USS Milius in the South China Sea as an act of aggression is concerning, but this isn't the first time the US military establishment has been accused of being agitative by the Chinese, and it won't be the last. The US military has always liked to test the waters, both figuratively and in this case literally. Hopefully, these isolated acts of aggression on either side never escalate, or else the fate of the whole world, not just the US or China, will be in grave danger. That's all for today. We'd love to hear your opinion on this recent kerfuffle between China and the US, so don't forget to comment your thoughts. Also remember to hit the like button and subscribe as well. We'll see you in the next one.